Welcome to Finscale, a podcast created by Solenne Niedercorn, shedding light on innovation in finance, banking, and insurance.
Episode 200, just you and me. In this episode, you'll hear only me. We've hit 200 episodes, but to be honest, there are more because we've also recorded about 20 specials. It was important to me to mark this milestone. When I launched this podcast, Finscale, my goal was neither fame nor monetization, but rather I had a hunger to shed light on so many amazing initiatives in the world of finance, a desire to learn and meet inspiring people, and also to inspire others. I wanted to share this with my ecosystem, which is now our ecosystem. And the idea was and always has been to demystify complexities by unpicking the most intricate parts of an industry that I've also been part of for 20 years. During these 3 years, almost 4, I've had the privilege of meeting nearly 200 experts in the field, immersing myself in topics as varied as private equity, venture capital, banking, payment systems, the CFO stack trends, and crypto, and many other subjects. This 200th episode is not just a celebration, but rather a retrospective, a look back at the significant trends, collaborations, and especially the skills and the exceptional entrepreneurs I've had the chance to meet. With my equipment and unwavering determination and passion, each week I delivered a new episode. In this episode, I'll speak about how I got started, the soft skills I rediscovered, the trends I've followed, and what more I've learned about entrepreneurship. So for this 200th episode, expect a journey through time, a deep dive into what Finscale has uncovered, shared, and celebrated. I'm so eager to share this with you. Thank you to everyone for joining me on this adventure, and I hope you enjoy this special episode of Finscale. As I ask every week, please rate this episode on the podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's a great way for me to get feedback. Go gentle on me. It's a lot harder being the only person on the mic. Enjoy the show. For those who've been listening for me for 3 years, I do realize that many don't really know who I am and what I do. So let me quickly introduce myself. So I'm married. I have 4 children. I'm living in Luxembourg. I would say I live in Luxembourg, but I'm a lot of my time in Switzerland and France. And I love mountains. I love mountaineering, trekking, and of course, do trail running. I've been working in finance for 20 years. I started my career at UBS as portfolio manager before joining the Swiss group Lombardier, where I contributed to major European projects, regulatory projects for most of them. And I also founded a tech business in 2015, just after giving birth, like the same day I gave birth, and then I went to the notary to sign the paper for the creation of my company. And but actually, the venture didn't go as I planned, unfortunately. But it allowed me to work afterwards in a startup. I've been working for 2 years in a regtech company, and I wanted to understand how these small companies operate. So I did this, and today I'm fully independent. Actually, I wear several hats. Let me summarize what I do, because that could last hours. So I have board positions in funds or companies. I also advise a startup and scale up in the fintech area, of course, in building regulated entities such as AIFM, credit institution, or investment firms, or in payment institution. I take a little bit of my time to also teach at HEC School of Management in Paris, so in France. Of course, I host the Finscale podcast, but I would say I try to restrict myself and have less than 20% of my time allocated to Finscale. Otherwise, it would be too time-consuming. Beyond all of this, I would say I'm a human and I love people and creating connections and impact. So how it all started? Actually, the beginning of my journey, the very beginning of my journey was a discussion with quite a famous podcaster in France called Mathieu Stéphanie, who became a friend now. And actually, I just had a quick coffee with him to understand what was he doing, all his motivations. And then we talked, and I really felt inspired by what he told me. And when I decided to launch the podcast was when I came back from this cafe in the train from Paris to Luxembourg. And then I said to myself, wow, what he does is really, really, really interesting. And I think this is something I can do. So I came back at home and I decided to launch it. And then within a week, I had, of course, the mic. I had all the needed equipment to record in amidst the hustle and bustle of the Paris metro, for instance. And I had the idea, like in an evening, I decided to concentrate on innovation and change in my industry, because I've been working years in finance. And I wanted to capture the essence of the rapid evolution of finance and technology. For the team, I chose a studio module, which is a great studio based in Paris. And Morgan Prudhomme, who is my great engineer, has become such a precious contact for me. I guess he's the person I'm the most in contact with on WhatsApp. And feel free to reach him on my behalf if you need to launch a podcast or even some videos. He's a great, also specialist in video. And and for English, I decided to take a proofreader because my English is, I would say, continental English. I don't know if we can say that, but I wanted the level of a British speaker. So I took a British speaker to help me and to add a discrete British nuance to my output. Regarding the newsletter platform, I decided easily Substack. Substack is quite used by content creators. I'm very happy. I still remain very happy with Substack. And for the visual, I created the visual on Canva. I guess it took me like 30 minutes. I shouldn't say that. Yes, but it's the effective approach to establishing an attractive visual identity. I guess the most efficient. And and in the beginning, I wrote dozens of cold emails in the beginning, like so many of us. And at first, nobody knew about Finscale. And in a way, that hasn't changed so much because when it comes to coverage, new countries, nobody knows me in the US, so I have to struggle to get great guests on my podcast based in the US, but it's great. It's great doing this. And regarding the anecdotes, it's funny because I recorded in very, very strange places I recorded on vacation, during travels, in restaurants, beside a pool, returning from skiing, in noisy cafe on the street, at even on a porch or by the sea. And in places sometimes comfortable, but sometimes not at all. And and when I record English episodes, sometimes I have to record very late at night. When it's a Californian-based guest, I have to record at midnight, but it's okay. Regarding writing, I wrote to you from Athens airport at 4 a.m. in the morning, from the depths of Norway, New York, and Chicago, and on many, many car rides. My children know that because I always have my computer on my knees and working with my bows on my ears. And yes, that's the way I work. And that's the only way for me to keep this 20% amount of my time dedicated to my podcast and not to pollute the other activities that I'm doing. And it's never happened that my email on Sunday morning didn't go out. Yeah, first I wanted to give you some content. So Finscale was launched in May 2020, and I've released 1 to 2 episodes a week ever since. In total, that makes 220 episodes. And I've had the immense pleasure of speaking with heavyweights from insurance, banking, investing, and everything in between when it comes to the world of fintech. It's been incredible, and I wouldn't have believed that Finscale would have hundreds of thousands of listeners, to be honest. So it remains a very niche podcast in the vast world of podcasts with, I would say, a French-speaking audience mainly. And guess what? Finscale often ranks in the top business podcast on Apple Podcast France, which is great. I'm very happy about that. And last figure, 220 newsletters have been sent out and 100 in English. And more or less the same for the number of LinkedIn posts, which is, quite amazing. And and among the companies I've spotlighted on my show, some have taken off or been acquired. Others sadly said goodbye. That happens. And and a few simply chose to close shop. Content-wise, we have a nice mix. So I did the calculation. 45% of my episode treated fintech subject. So when I say fintech, it's insurtech, fontech, regtech, etc. 12% dived into the world of Web3, crypto, blockchain. 20% about investment. When I say investment, it's PE, VC, etc. And 7% only are devoted to impact. I try to improve that number. I did much more episode on impact investing and finance. Sustainability in finance this year, but it has to improve. And and not to mention the 10% that go to somewhat more traditional players. I've had the privilege of having discussions with some of the biggest names in finance, like Visa, Euronext, the European Investment Fund, BPI France, Amundi, Pictet, Rothschild & Co., BNP Paribas. And that's without counting exchanges I've had with the likes of France FinTech or the European Payments Association, the Payment Association in the EU. Yes, it's impossible for me to mention them all, but I've discovered a tremendous mix of fintech coming from Belgium, Switzerland, the UK, Spain, Germany, Austria, Finland, etc., and even in the US. It's a sort of podcast world tour, I would say. And when it comes to asset managers, I've touched on everything from the equity market, stocks or fixed income side, to unlisted. And that's the one I favor the most, personally, alternative investments. So I've looked into private debt, PE, impact investing, securitization, and even VC and growth. And it's funny because when people tell me that I've seen it all, I can't help but laugh because the world of finance is such a vast ocean. There is so much more that I want to explore. I wanted to touch on soft skills. I covered this the least in my episode, but it's fundamental. And when it comes to business, it carries massive clout in the financial sector. So let me share a few examples that I've learned during my time doing the Finscale podcast. So the number one is the ability to adapt, the agility. And we all know that when you develop a product, you need to meet a market, you need to meet a given need. In an industry where regulation change frequently, entrepreneurs need to adapt quickly and be ready to evolve. I was amazed by one of my guests, it's in a French audio. It's a very successful entrepreneur called Anne Chuang. She's the first employee of Conto. And she created and founded Lago. So I recorded an episode with her. And we had to make a she had to make with her team a complete pivot. And she perfectly describes the way it happened. And it's amazing the way that the team reacted and behaved in that very stressing part of their journey. I also covered this in my French audio with Adina Gregoriou. She's the founder of Active Asset Allocation. And she discussed how their offering evolved to the insurance industry. And she perfectly illustrates this agility point. The number two that I have in mind is quite standard. I would say it's mainstream, but it's still of utmost importance. It's leadership. It's the agility of entrepreneurs that have met in guiding their teams through significant milestones and various stages of company growth. And that has been remarkable in some cases. When you consider the success of companies like Alma, Conto, MongoPay, and Ledger, or Checkout.com, leadership often entails making difficult decisions and most importantly, owning the results. And it's a trait that I've consistently observed in many of the entrepreneurs that I've encountered. And why I mentioned these examples, the truth is I could mention many more from those I met on Finscale and in my professional engagements. Number 3 is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is something that I'm also digging at personal level. I find it so interesting and so, center in our relationship within each other. And yes, it's the ability to understand and regulate one's emotions and to know and interpret the emotions of others. Yes, it's truly a special skill that really helps to create a positive corporate culture, manage stress, and more importantly, to negotiate effectively in an often in a business environment that is a lot under pressure. A prime example of this in the episode that I have recorded is two founder and partners of a VC fund called Teampact. It's very interesting because what Teampact is building is actually they try to instill companies with the essence of sportsmanship, instill the values of sports in the companies they invest in. Very interesting. The number 4 of the soft skills that I have identified is communication, and it takes a lot of work, and especially for startups that develop businesses on complex technologies or daunting regulations. I have in mind a few of them, like, for instance, Force Line, or episode that I had on open banking, such as a True Layer, where it's becoming, and the communication becomes very, very complicated. Subject are very complex, and the way those entrepreneurs manage it is quite amazing. So I really encourage you to listen to these 2 episodes, but many, many others, I would say. I remember the one that I recorded with the founder of ETC Group. Trying to explain to somebody who is not aware of what an ETP is, how they managed to launch ETP product in the domain of crypto was a very complex exercise. And Bradley Duke, the CEO, perfectly explained that to us. Congrats to you, Bradley, if you listen. There are those who have left their mark because they have tackled the north face of the mountains, and they showed courage, perseverance. They dive directly in building complex structures. So I was thinking of Taylor. So Taylor is I received the CEO of Taylor, Patrick Scheibler, and he explains to us how they managed to lend to corporates. And what is interesting is the way they created their securitization vehicle in Luxembourg. It's very inspiring, but it's not easy at all what they did. So it's quite amazing. And it requires demands incredible patience from both the entrepreneurs and their investors. Among the recipes for creating miracles, I've noticed a common thread, which is the cultivation of a strong corporate culture. This is evident in companies like Penny Lane, which is initially based in France. And a significant part of their success to the foundation laid by their company culture, in my opinion. Second element that I have noticed is, giving meaning to one's business. If I think of an episode that has truly left its mark on me, it's definitely the one I had with Sweep. It's a startup that is based in France and takes its mission very seriously. It's not about just offering a service. You can really get a sense of their vision with the CEO. Her name is Rachel Delacour. And she articulates and advances a vision that gives meaning to the company. There's a real purpose, and we can feel that it has galvanized all the employees and to unite behind one common objective, which is sustainability. It's quite amazing. The third point that I have also in mind is valuing diversity. There are a lot of initiatives in financial industry that try to highlight the importance of diversity and inclusion. I'm thinking specifically about Ladies Bank, which has an initiative launched by Odo BHF and Sista Fund. And those two initiatives confirm that diversity is not just a representation issue and a real driver of innovation and performance. There are, of course, many other ingredients that I should have included, like a strong management team, adaptability of the business model, clear and evolving business model. Governance is so important. A governance that is adapted to the stage of the company. A board that is adapted to the stage of the company. Of course, the international office culture, strategic and well-executed networking, along with, yes, important, very important partnerships that are both sensible and swift to establish, are also critical components. One of the topics that I have really enjoyed seeing emerge is that of sustainable finance. Moving beyond the stereotypes, I've uncovered true gems and teams fully committed to the cause like Satgana, Carbon Equity, Mirova, Kimpa, Ring Capital, Impact Partners, or Stripe. This is one of the major fintech themes that fascinates me, and I can share a list, but it might end up being too long. All that as a service topics as well, like lending as a service, payment as a service, of course, banking as a service, rent-to-own, revenue-based financing, buy now pay later, reverse buy now pay later, and of course, wealth tech. I've been working in the wealth area for 13 years, so I'm very sensitive to wealth tech, and notably eToro, Scalable Capital, and Finari. I love discovering more about Web3, crypto, and blockchain, whether through tokenization or wealth tech. And I really enjoyed the discussion I had with some of the advanced players in the game. And in total, I guess if I remember correctly, more or less like 20 episodes dealing with this. A recurring theme I have encountered is the CFO stack. I've discovered a plethora of solutions in areas such as cash management, bill payment, accounting, and beyond. Yeah, I must admit that I did deviate a little bit. I ventured beyond finance to delve into the world of startup studio. It's still within the realm of investment, but I really enjoyed my discussion with Quentin Nickmans from EXA, Patrick Amiel from 321 Founded, and Camille Tian from Logic Founders. And it's a model that makes sense, that's exciting, and that has given birth to amazing company. Very beautiful companies indeed. And by now you must know my bias towards regulation, whether it's sanction screening or an importance of KYC. There is no way I could miss out on these topics. And driven by my curiosity, I explored topics slightly off the beaten track. The episode of the film on the film financing and discussion about the needs of institutional investors with Hexagon Finance was particularly fascinating for me. So here we are. That's the end of the episode. It's a huge milestone in the journey of Finscale. Before concluding, I wanted to express my gratitude to you, dear listeners. Your loyalty and commitment throughout these 4 years have been so precious and a very source of inspiration and motivation. So it's thanks to your listening, your sharing, and your comments that Finscale has become what it is today. If I look to the future, my next steps would be to continue to explore the world of finance, its progress, to dive even deeper into trends, to unveil the secrets of new technologies, and of course, to introduce you to entrepreneurs and players in finance who work to transform the industry. All of this with you all having at a front row seat. Our journey together is only just beginning. Finally, I'd like to extend a special invitation to each one of you. Your voices and experience are vital in deepening our collective insight. So I encourage you to share your lessons learned, your reflections, your feedback on the discoveries you've made with Finscale. Your stories, your successes, and your challenges enrich this dialogue and this community. You can write to me, you can leave me comments on LinkedIn and comment on the podcast, on your platforms. Every contribution counts for me. Thank you again for your loyalty and shared passion. I'll see you for the next episode of Finscale. Until then, keep exploring, learning, and above all, sharing. I send you my warmest regards and heartfelt thanks. Ciao. Thank you all for listening and sharing this moment with us. Don't hesitate to contact me on Twitter or LinkedIn to share your comments and reactions. You can also rate this episode on your favorite podcast platform. See you soon.